Now, your WAAY 31 Storm Tracker forecast.
Hey, good evening, everyone. WAAY 31 Storm Tracker Chief Meteorologist Jeff Castle here. Obviously, you know why I'm on. We're talking about winter weather threat for the weekend. Did want to kind of run through what we've got for the latest, kind of what my thoughts are, what we're seeing in the trends, and hopefully get you prepared for what we have going on this weekend. We're live streaming right now on Facebook, on my Meteorologist Jeff Castle Facebook page, the WAAY 31 Facebook page, and also live streaming currently on the WAAY 31 YouTube channel. So let's kind of jump right in. We're still expecting a threat for some wintry precip this weekend. Some things have changed a little bit from when I last spoke with you here on the live stream yesterday. We're going to kind of talk about that. But let's kind of run through the alert day. That still remains in effect here for the weekend time frame. I'll pull this up full screen so you can get a better view of what we've got going on. We are still looking at a wintry mix. That's what is going to happen. Less concerned or less excited, depending on your disposition, about snow. I think that's kind of off the table for the most part, maybe on the back end, but this is primarily going to be a little bit of an icy mix that we are going to see around here. And even that may be disrupted. And again, we'll kind of talk about that as we go along. We're expecting this starting Friday night, probably already seeing some precip by the time you wake up Saturday morning. And then this is likely to persist through Sunday, all of North Alabama and southern Middle Tennessee under the threat of winter weather. National Weather Service, first thing this morning, did put out a winter storm watch. If you have the WAAY 31 Storm Tracker weather app, you probably got that notification overnight if you had that turned on. That kicks in 6 p.m. Friday, goes until 6 p.m. Sunday. What does a watch mean? Well, just to recap, a watch is basically be on the lookout for. It means within this time frame between Friday evening and Sunday evening, there is the potential that winter storm conditions could be met. Winter storm conditions include a certain amount of snowfall, a certain amount of ice. Again, in this sort of setup, in this sort of situation, just the way things are looking, the way they've trended, we're more concerned about an ice threat than a snow threat. So don't get your hopes up for snow. It looks like that is the least of what we will see out of this in terms of frozen precipitation. Where are we in the process? We often talk about this, forecasting winter weather. You know it's not easy. You know there have been plenty of disappointments, particularly here in Alabama. Honestly, I'm an Ohio boy, and growing up in Ohio, there were plenty of disappointments for me when it came to winter weather. So it is not easy. It involves a specific combination of moisture, upper level storm system support, those features that help lift the atmosphere, and then also what is the thermal profile of the atmosphere? Will that support frozen precip, or is it going to be too warm and we're going to get rainfall? And we know that as we are farther out in time, we can't say anything definite, but we're getting now within that 3-day window. So today's Wednesday. Again, we expect this coming in probably Friday night into Saturday, so we're sitting there at 3 days out from this. So we're getting into the time frame where we can start to be a little bit more detailed about the timing, the amounts, and the impacts. I think we got the timing pretty well nailed down. I'll be honest, the amounts and the impacts are still a bit of a question mark, and that's because the information that we use, the tools that we use to forecast the weather, among those different tools, there do remain some fairly significant disagreements, and I'm going to chat about all that here as we go through time. And you may have seen me share this on my social media a little bit earlier. I found this interesting, and I just want to preface this before we start talking about models and kind of what they are seeing. And you hear us discuss models all the time. We talk about this model, we talk about that model. The neat thing about the weather, and people a lot smarter than me have figured this out over the years, is a lot of things that change in the weather can be described using math and physics. So if you're a big math person, I won't get into it, but there are very, very complex equations that describe how the atmosphere and atmospheric conditions will change over time. And then there are computer scientists that have worked with meteorologists. They put together these computer models that basically you take all the math, You take all the weather observations around the world, you combine the two, you let the computer run its program, spits out a picture of what the atmosphere may look like in the future. Problem with these models is they're inherently wrong, because what goes into the models are some approximations. And as you approximate things, short time frame ahead, yeah, it's going to be pretty good. But if you are putting in approximations as you go farther out in time, you start to get errors, and those errors compound upon themselves if you are not putting in the exact information. So that's one of the things why these computer models, why they're different. Some of them are all structured a little different as to how they operate, how they handle the mathematical equations. And these errors start to creep in, and as you go farther out in time, it makes it a little bit more difficult to be too detailed. The other thing that goes into these computer models that we don't talk about a lot is they rely on the current time, basically time zero. These models start with what is the current state of the atmosphere. We got a pretty good idea of that, but we don't know what's happening in every single air molecule around the entire planet. And so you have some errors there just in what we call the initial data set. But I did find this interesting. So the more data you can put into these models, the better they become, because that's one of the big things that leads to errors. And I found this interesting. And again, I shared this on Facebook a little bit earlier. So we normally think of the hurricane hunters going out and sampling the atmosphere during and in advance of tropical storms and hurricanes. Well, they're actually being utilized right now. Now, one of the components of this storm system and this developing winter storm that is coming on in involves that swirl of clouds that you see off the west coast of the U.S., west California. That's an upper level low pressure system that is going to progress inland here in the next 48 hours. It's going to kind of merge with the cold air coming in from Canada down from the north, and all this is going to kind of come together to generate this widespread winter storm threat that we are anticipating across the country. The problem is out over the ocean, we don't launch weather balloons. The only other information we can get about the atmosphere is from some remote sensing information we can get using satellite technology, any weather information that's collected by commercial airlines that may be flying through here. But inherently out over the oceans, where we don't launch those weather balloons like we launch over land, now, there are a lot of data gaps. So the hurricane hunters are actually flying some missions out here today. They're scheduled to do the same thing tomorrow as well, to kind of sample the atmosphere in the vicinity of this area low pressure, to feed that into the computer models and hopefully give them a better initial look at the atmosphere of which to then base those calculations on. So I just thought that was kind of neat how all that works out, and that they're actually doing this. And this is something that they'll occasionally do, but it's not a regular thing. But I guess because of the expanse of this winter weather system, they've deemed it a good thing to do and a good use of time and resources to do this. And this is a reason why this winter storm that is going to be developing, and we've kind of talked about this, it's going to be massive. We're talking massive impacts here. These are all the winter storm watches. Again, we've got one here for North Alabama and southern Tennessee, but they start all the way now in New Mexico. Most of the state of Texas, almost all of the state of Oklahoma under winter storm watch, and those winter storm watches extend all the way now into Virginia and North and South Carolina. A good 1,500-mile stretch of continuous winter storm watches. So this is going to have very, very wide-reaching impacts where this winter storm goes on through. So what are we expecting those impacts here locally? I'm going to give you my thoughts. We're going to show you some of the model information as well. But here's what I'm generally expecting at this point for North Alabama. Snow, at this point, I think is going to be kind of unlikely. We might get some on the back end. That's a possibility. But as far as seeing snow throughout this event, I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think we're going to be set up for that. What we're going to be more set up for is ice. That's going to be your freezing rain. That's going to be your sleet potential at times. The fly in the ointment is that we're starting to see indications that although it's going to be cold, we may see temperatures in parts of North Alabama later in the day, Saturday night, maybe into early Sunday, that go above the freezing mark. And that's going to allow some of this to change over to cold rain. That will lessen the impacts, lessen the accumulation. So yesterday I was really concerned from what we were seeing about the potential for ice accumulation, what some of those numbers were looking like. I'm less concerned now that this is going to turn out to be a major ice storm all across the area. There may still be some spots that maybe get hit a little bit harder than others, but it doesn't look like the scope of this is going to be quite as severe as it did. It's not to say there won't be impacts regardless, even if it's not a huge historic ice storm for us. Some of those impacts will include hazardous travel. There is likely going to be a period where we do see some sleet and some freezing rain. So that's going to make roads very slick and hazardous. Depending on the ice amounts, and once you start getting 1/4 of an inch of ice accretion, which is basically if you look at an object and it has 1/4 of an inch of ice on it, that starts to provide enough weight where you can have some problems with some tree limbs falling. Those can fall on the power lines. Once you get up to a certain thickness of ice, you could even be talking about the lines themselves snapping under the weight of that ice, regardless of whether it's something like a tree that comes down and hit it. So we are still going to be watching for that potential. Now I'm going to show you some model data here. We are within range now of one of our in-house computer models. This is provided to us via our weather vendor. And I would just kind of run you through what it is showing because it's now in range. Some of the models that we've been using up until now, they're models that are not as high resolution, so the details can be a little bit off. The placement of things can be a little bit off. We're starting to get into the range now where these smaller scale resolution models are coming into play, and so that's going to help increase our confidence a bit as we see what these have to say. And over the next 24 hours, we're going to start to get more of these coming on board that we're going to have at our disposal to use. But again, this is just one of those. This is the in-house model that we have. This is often, if you watch on television, what we show you. All right, so this one, I've got it started here 1 o'clock in the morning, Friday night into early Saturday. You start to see that pink color, and that pink color indicating the wintry mix. And we're starting to see that come through 6 o'clock in the morning. The blues and the whites, that's snowfall. That is north of us. And I don't foresee a circumstance where that is going to shift more back to the south. If anything, we may continue to see a shift to the north on this frozen precip. So I think snow is likely the least likely thing that we would see in terms of frozen precip. But the wintry mix, that's still on the table. And again, that's going to be sleet, freezing rain, perhaps a mixture of both at times, depending on the thermal profile of the lower atmosphere. So that's 6 o'clock in the morning Saturday. We got a little bit of that out there. Looks like it may generally be light, but enough of that. Temperatures will be Saturday morning, we expect, will be into the upper end of the 20s. And so this could start to create a little bit of a glaze out there. Bridges and overpasses in particular, susceptible to icing up, and starting to see some ice accretion on exposed objects, trees, power lines, basically anything that doesn't generate its own heat that is exposed to the air. We take you up to 9 in the morning, still seeing a lot of that pink showing up, but what you start to see is some green. Now this is one of the changes that has started to show up in some of the information that we're looking at, and that is the possibility that the lower atmosphere may warm above freezing in some cases here across North Alabama. How much and how many places see that? That's kind of a question mark at this point. There are some very stark differences in some of the pieces of data right now. One of them has really gone off the deep end as far as pushing most of the frozen precip well north of us and showing primarily a cold rain here for many areas in North Alabama. That's kind of the outlier at this point, but it is one that had been trending in that direction. We started to see that late yesterday, and it continued to trend in that direction in the updates since. Some of the other data has not quite gone that far yet, but kind of following the example of that one particular model that has lessened the impacts here locally. So again, that's something we're keeping an eye on, and we see that even in this high-resolution model that we have in-house, indicating some rain starts to show up here, and a cold rain at that. I'll show you one more frame here. This is at the lunch hour. And even notice with time some of that snow north of us, even that's starting to get pushed farther to the north. So this model is also, and this is the last frame I can show you, it doesn't go beyond noon right now on Saturday. We will get an update actually in this between now and 10 o'clock. That'll take it to 6 p.m. on Saturday. And I will show you that on our 10 o'clock news tonight, but for now it only goes out to noon. But again, it is starting to show that trend that the potential for frozen precip through the day Saturday may begin to shift a little bit more to the north. And so that's what we're going to continue to watch and see if that continues to show up in the data that we already have that we're seeing it, and the data that's not quite showing that much of an extreme change, if it starts to head in that direction in some of that model activity as well. So this is just a first look here, just based on what I've been seeing, kind of what the trend is. A lot of times using these computer models, you're forecasting based off of the trend and not exactly what the model says at an instantaneous point in time. So let me pull this full screen. So this is kind of what we're looking at here as far as winter impacts this weekend. And again, I want to stress it's likely going to be in the form of ice, freezing rain, sleet. Could be some accumulations of sleet, certainly possible. And again, freezing rain is going to be that glaze of ice that accumulates on objects. So impacts right now, as I kind of see them, a higher chance of those, of some moderate impacts perhaps, out across northwest Alabama and the shoals, areas of southern middle Tennessee, and maybe into Sand Mountain. That's a little bit more questionable. That's going to involve some colder air kind of backdooring in from the east, and we'll see if that can happen. The area that's highlighted in green here, that does include the greater Huntsville area and basically points south, 65 to Coleman, 431, 231 down in Marshall County. A lower chance of moderate impacts. There still could be some impacts, particularly if we do begin the day on Saturday, as that one version of future radar was showing you, with some early day sleet and freezing rain. That could be enough to ice up the roads. But as far as where it could be a little bit more persistent, would be out towards the shoals and into areas of northeast Alabama, as well as southern middle Tennessee. All right, let's talk models. I'll show you this one. This first one, it's not labeled. This is this model, and this is the potential ice through Sunday. This is coming from what's known as the GFS model. It is a mid to long range model. We typically use it in the 3 to 5 day time frame, and it gives us a general idea even beyond that, what to expect weather-wise. It's still holding on to a fair amount of ice, indicating anywhere from half an inch to maybe as much as an inch of ice here, pretty well spread out across North Alabama, so that includes everyone. Another model that I'm going to show you, this one is the European model. And I will say, if you followed me enough and you hear me talk enough, this is my preferred one, and this one's labeled the Euro. This one, in my experience, outperforms the GFS. A lot of times when the Euro starts to trend in a new direction from where the forecast had been, it does it first, and then the GFS follows suit. So again, not always that way. There are no absolutes here, but that's just my experience. So I often defer to what this one says. This is the one that is really, really backing off on the winter precip potential. Now, this is what it is forecasting in terms of ice through Sunday afternoon. Much less, different picture. Some areas it says no ice whatsoever because it is forecasting primarily rain, a cold rain that'll come through. But it does show some areas out in the northwest corner of the state, northeast Alabama, close to the Georgia border, southern middle Tennessee, where there could be some substantial icing that could cause some problems. So this is kind of what we're watching right now. This is the dilemma. Yesterday, if you followed anything that I put on social media, this model was hitting the ice pretty hard, showing 1 to 2 inches of ice accumulation potential. And the other model, the GFS, was actually hitting snow very, very hard and generating some unrealistic amounts of snow. But again, things change, and that's why I tell you, check back with us. I always say, new information will be coming in. We're going to take a look at that, and we're going to adjust the forecast accordingly. And this is the reason why, because this data is constantly changing. You know, sometimes I feel like my head's going to explode looking at all the data available, trying to sift through it, what's right, what isn't, what I think it will do based on the information that I have. So it gets quite complicated. And for those of you that understand that, thank you. And for those of you that don't, you know, hopefully I've given you a little bit of an explanation as to why sometimes the forecast goes the way it does. It looks one way, but then we get a pivot in a different direction, and this is kind of the reason why. A lot of information, and it's not information that is the absolute truth all the time that we have to look through. So that inherently causes some problems with the forecast. So that's just kind of just a look here at what we've got going on. I would plan at this point for some disruptions as a result of this. Again, let me pull up my expectations. The 31 alert days remain in place because of the fact that I think there is going to be some frozen precip. The question is it going to be high impact or not? And we're thinking it's looking less impactful than it did yesterday or the day before. Doesn't mean that it still won't have some impact, just maybe not quite as substantial. So again, as you make plans for the weekend, right now, I just make plans, don't get out if you don't have to. And obviously, if the forecast continues to trend in the direction of the European model, which is suggesting more cold rain than anything else, then of course we're going to let you know that, and you can adjust accordingly, just as we are. We've already made plans about how we're going to cover this. I mentioned yesterday, I think, that we're on top of Montesano Mountain here, just outside of downtown Huntsville, elevation of about 1,600 feet. If the road's ice over, we're not getting up or down this mountain. So we've made contingency plans as to how we're going to be here, who's going to be where, and how things are going to be covered so that we can keep you up to date, worst case scenario sort of situation for us. So let me kind of run through here just, you know, I hope I've been thorough in what I've been talking about. And I'll try to answer a few questions here on that I'm seeing on Facebook. Luke mentioning seeing some models shifting south. Yeah, there could be a few of those. There's really been more of a northward trend with most of the modeling. And again, that could be temporary trend, and things can always go back to the way they were. But again, as you get closer to the event and what you see the trends doing, sometimes you have to follow that. So Tia wanted to know, so we still be preparing for power outages? Absolutely. You know, I always say over-prepare for anything, whether it's winter weather, severe weather, be over-prepared. And then you're ready, regardless of what happens. Amy wanted to know, how will Lamar County be? Lamar County, you're kind of down there, kind of on the edge. If you notice with the winter storm watch, you know, yesterday, and I know our counterparts in Birmingham have been talking about, you know, winter threat, ice, that sort of thing. But because of this shift in the information suggesting maybe the frozen precip is shifting a little bit more northward. That's the reason why none of the greater Birmingham area was included in a winter storm watch, at least for the time being. So Lamar County, you're kind of right there on the edge, a little outside of Birmingham, as to whether or not you're going to see any impacts. Again, for now, only far north Alabama is included in the winter storm watch. So Lamar County, you are not currently included in that. So again, it's going to be kind of a close call there. Let's see. Yeah, Michael chiming in about the hurricane hunters, where they are. Tyler brings up a good point. 2 days out, stay aware. Stay aware. Absolutely. Cindy, so it's not as bad as we thought. I would say it's not as bad as it looked yesterday or the day before, when it just looked like we might have a catastrophic ice storm. So that has changed. Won't say there won't still be problems and some impacts, but it's not looking as terrible as it did. And if that had turned out what we were seeing yesterday, 1 to 2 inches of ice, that would be catastrophic. So I'm glad that has changed. Okay, Leslie has a good point here. If we get a cold rain, will there be wind to help dry it out before it freezes overnight? There's going to be a fine line here. Now, I mentioned on the front end some frozen precip, and then the question is, do we change over to a cold rain, which is looking like a real possibility. On the back end of this, which I don't have that to show you yet here on some of the shorter range models, but I'll bring up one here. I'll bring up one if I can find it. So I didn't talk about, briefly here I mentioned the possibility of some snow on the back end. So as this winter storm begins to pull away on Sunday, let me see what this shows. On the back end of it, as the storm pulls away, like I said, we may get this nose of warm air. This, by the way, that I'm showing you, this is the European, showing early on Friday night, Saturday morning, maybe into midday Saturday, again some frozen stuff. Then you see the rain coming on in. And then on the back end of this, so we'll stop this. This is 11 o'clock Sunday morning. Let me pull it up full screen so you can get a better view. You see that pink color back through southern Tennessee and into parts of North Alabama. So there is a possibility on the back side of this system, as the storm is pulling away, then we do start to wrap some colder air back in, and there's a good chance temperatures may fall through the day on Sunday. We could see a brief changeover, kind of like what we often do, but then it's going to be a situation of the cold air chasing the moisture. How quickly does the moisture get out before the atmosphere gets cold enough to support frozen precip again? So on the back end, there could be a little bit of frozen precip. So we are going to watch that, but again, right now I'm not real concerned that will be significant, but it is something that'll bear watching. So to answer your question, if we get a cold rain, will there be wind behind it to help dry it out? There is going to be quite a bit of wind coming in the backside of this. In fact, we've been seeing some indications there may be some winds that could gust 30, 40 miles per hour as this system begins to depart and pull away and pull us in cold air. The other part of this that we've not really talked about, we've kind of alluded to in the forecast, obviously focused on the winter weather threat, is that just how cold Monday morning is probably going to be around here. Temperatures well down to the teens. We're going to have a strong wind out of the north, and we may have wind chill readings that are down near zero or even below. And there's probably going to be, the Weather Service puts out now a cold weather advisory. One of those is likely going to be into play for at least part of the day Monday. So there is going to be some strong wind that is going to come in to help dry things out. But again, there may be a little overlap there. Either some precip on the back edge that is in frozen form, and at least some icing that still could take place. So again, there still could be some impacts even at that point. So I hope that answers your question. That we won't totally say that even after the precip departs, that we won't have some problems with some icing before things do dry back out. Patrick, the GFS can be a goof us model sometimes. All right, that's good using the initials there, and that's just my personal experience over the years. Kyle wants to know, is this the new Euro? This is the one from midday today. So this is the one that ran at midday. We got the data late afternoon after it finished its run. The Euro updates every 6 hours. So we got one at midday. There is a run of the Euro that's happening right now. I will not have that data before the 10 o'clock news. That will not come out until late evening. Same for the GFS. GFS is in the process of running. We will start to see some of that trickle on in before 10 o'clock. I don't know if we'll quite make it out to the point to encompass the entirety of this storm, but as I say, my head explodes when I look at this data, and that is one of the things I'll be looking at before 10 o'clock. I'll be looking at the GFS as it's coming in frame by frame to see if it's changing. All right, and I think some of these other questions I've kind of answered here. So at this point, I think I'm going to wrap up the live. I don't know how long we've been doing this. Probably at least 30 minutes. One yesterday I did was about 30 minutes. I can get a little bit long-winded. My producers sometimes don't like that for me. They don't give me much grief, but on television I can be a little bit long-winded. And that's because I want to try and explain things in simple terms and to let you know what to expect. And sometimes I can't do that in just a few words. And I want to make it as easy for you to understand as possible. So, but with that, yeah, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. But I appreciate taking time out of your evening to tune in and to hear what I have to say and what my latest thoughts are. Again, just to summarize here what we've got going on. We've got our 31 alert day for this weekend. We are expecting a wintry mix at times. As far as frozen precip, it's most likely going to be sleet and or freezing rain. And we may mix some rain into it as well. Snow, right now that's not top of mind, that we're really going to see much, if any, snowfall. Maybe a shot at the very back end as the precip is winding down on Sunday and moving out. And again, we're watching this Friday night to Sunday time frame. So what I need you to do at this point is just be aware there could be some impacts, particularly in terms of travel, number one, and depending on if we do get some substantial ice accumulations, once you start getting up around 1/4 of an inch of ice and higher, that's when you start having some bigger problems with power outages and tree limbs coming down. So I just need you to be aware that that's a possibility. Maybe not catastrophic ice storm, but still some impacts to be had. And that, of course, where you get enough ice could lead to some power outages. So just keep that as top of mind for the weekend, as that remains a possibility. And just know that we're going to continue to monitor all the new data that's coming on in and refining the forecast as necessary and keeping you updated. This will be something I'll likely do tomorrow evening as well. Of course, you can always get the latest on our forecast, watching our newscast. Again, next one coming up will be at 10 o'clock tonight. You can go to our website, waaytv.com/weather. Weather forecast, we keep that updated multiple times a day. And if you don't have the WAAY 31 Storm Tracker weather app, it's a free app for your smartphone or mobile device. Just go to your app store, search for WAAY weather. You'll find it. Standalone weather app. We take a lot of time to produce some content there and make sure the forecast is what we believe it is going to turn out. So unlike the weather app that comes preloaded on your telephone when you get a new phone, there's no one that's going in and adding content, adjusting the content. It's just spitting something out from an automated computer with really no human intervention, whereas our app, we are doing that, and you're getting it from your local sources here as well. So if you don't have our weather app, I encourage you to download that if you don't. And again, providing updates here on social media. Again, the stream on YouTube, the channel on YouTube for WAAY 31. We post weather videos there as well throughout the day. So lots of places where you can stay up to date. Again, thank you for tuning in. We're going to go and wrap this up. I'm going to start working on some other things that I need to here in the next little bit, getting ready for the 10 o'clock news. Again, analyzing the new model data that's coming on in and adjusting our forecast as I feel that we need to. But I hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Stay safe this weekend. And again, we're going to continue to keep a watch on everything and keep you up to date as to what is going on.